That was classic Carl Thomas here on the Punchline Academy, youtube.com at Inphamus Amadeuz. You can watch this video back or hit the SiriusXM mobile application to tap in and more. Carl, I was today years old when I found out you did the intro to the War Report 2 project. So as I was saying, Tone, so Tone was like, okay, Inf, name 5 Carl Thomas records. And I obviously said Faith Evans Join. I said Victory. But I was like, listen, you know, he was on the first LOX album, Money, Power, Respect.
Wow.
You know? Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that one.
Well, he was also on Notorious' first album. Oh, I didn't know that either. So I'm like, let me find out what else he was on. And then I see you sang The Change Gonna Come intro to this project. So when it came down to these R&B features, as you were saying, were you kind of just popping up in studios and then they were just kind of like, yo, Carl, jump on this record, jump on that record?
Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, Big's album coming out, you know, definitely was the catalyst that.
And you signed Bad Boy what year?
beginning of 96.
Okay, so you were there when Biggie was still around, obviously.
Yeah. You know, but Life After Death, that project just really made the phone
ring,
not stop ringing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Constantly. You know, we just wanted to get that sound, that voice, whatever it is. I think one of the regrets I have, I did a record with 8 Ball and MJG, Memphis legends, Houston legends. I love them. And I always regretted that record not being a single, and I never knew how he felt about it, but my partner Tyrone, he actually told him, you know, that was like one of his biggest regrets, is not coming out with the Hollaback record as a single.
What was there a reason why? Was like politics, label stuff, or
I don't know. You know, once I give up the offering, I don't know what happens with it or what.
You just kind of hear it, and that's
yeah. A lot of records that I record or a lot of records that I write, you know, it's sent into the stratosphere. Yeah. And I don't know, you know, what's
gonna happen.
Yeah. I was once doing beds of music for European sitcoms, you know, shows and things of that nature, and you know, you get checks that you don't even recognize. You know what I mean? Some show in Denmark that you've never heard of, you know, went into the library and bought your music, and now it's so stuff like that, you know, just kind of, you know, blossoms from those beginnings. You know what I mean? I will never not give hip hop the proper respect due. You know what I mean? For putting me on the platform, for people to listen to my R&B music. Because
that marriage we were talking about.
Definitely. Now, as far as what happened to the marriage, you know, just like it went, I think it'll come back. You know, I think it'll definitely come back.
At some point.
Yeah, you know, when I was getting out of high school, believe it or not, in the early 90s, we were wearing afros with pork chop sideburns.
Still in the 90s.
Believe it. Like, no, this actually came back to the barbershop as an actual style. It's like cats in Dallas right now rocking shags.
Yeah, type of thing,
What?
The shocking factor.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so everything could come back.
Shout out to Showbiz, the adult. My brother.
So you got signed in 96, and obviously you got signed in a hostile climate, right? And then
Hostile. He said hostile
climate.
What was hostile about it, man?
So then, all right. So now we look back, right, and we look at the catalog, and then how amazing is it to see that you have a record with Pac, considering the whole Bad Boy Death Row thing, and then you have that on the catalog. Was that was it like a check mark? Was it like a benchmark? Like, listen, I need to get on that.
I don't know if it was necessarily a benchmark, but it's definitely one of the things that sticks out in my career. I try to spot, you know, and try to think of any artist that I know that recorded with Big and Pac. You know, there's not that many of them.
It's not that many.
There's not that many. Maybe a handful, but it it's real cool to be in that small group. You know, Big was a great person. Pac was a great person. And a lot of people forget that they were 25 when they died.
Kids. They were kids.
They were kids. 25 years old. And I think about the seriousness that they were handling at that young age.
So much power.
Yeah.
You know, money.
Yeah.
You're broke.
You know exactly what I'm saying.
All this money and power. You know, Pac had he had political ties. He had Juice changed the trajectory of his life. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Big got crowned the king of New York when there was no king of New York.
Right.
And then you're just thrown into stardom and fame, and then you have media getting in between, and then you create a whole chaos.
Yeah. You know, when you're that young, you don't really get that. Well, you know, they got to sell papers. Yeah. They got to sell magazines. You know what I mean? They got to, they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah. The stirring you were talking about.
Yeah. And if you look at over on. I won't say the white side of things, but let's say if you look over at the pop side, right? The same thing is going on in 17 magazine. Yeah. The same thing is going on in Us magazine.
Just a different way.
You know, when I'm aging myself right now, but at one point, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have access to everything that everybody has access to now. You know what I mean? Like I'm a product of the Moon Man revolution. Yeah. MTV, you know what I'm saying? So for me, you know, for us, social media was something called zines. Yeah, and zines was like your typical fan abbreviated magazine, you know, that had posters of your favorite artists, posters of Michael Jackson and Prince, and you know what I mean. My favorite poster was the Tougher Than Leather Run DMC Adidas poster.
Classic.
I think all my friends had that poster and Bruce Lee in the yellow outfit with the black stripe. Stop front.
Carl, fun fact about you, right? You were discovered at an open mic.
Yeah. Chaz and Wilson's. Big up to Debbie Wilson. You know what I mean? Chaz and Wilson's. My mentor, the late, great Mr. Ron Grant. And it started out, you know, a lot of singers really have that same journey. When you talk about R&B, you can't talk about R&B without talking about open mic.
Facts.
You can't talk about R&B without talking about church. Look at where we come from. You know what I mean? Look at where we come from. Everybody got mad at Jermaine Dupri when he said, these young kids are not going to church. Where are they drawing their soul from?
Wow.
Where are they drawing it? Where? Where are they drawing that from? Where you can't, you know, there is no connection. There is no connection. But when, it's like we were talking earlier about Leon Thomas. I don't know him. I've never met him. I heard his voice one time, and I could tell you, oh, he's from church. Okay.
Yeah, because there's a certain soul level in it that it's like, you can't replicate it.
Yeah.
Like, that comes from God.
There you go.
Wow.
And passing the offering.
There's definitely a vast difference with the artists that came up during your time versus the artists that have come up now. And I think social media has a lot to do with it. Like when you came out, it was before social media had taken off. So do you think these...
We was doing MySpace.
I remember MySpace.
Even before MySpace. But do you think artists these days, you think they understand the journey of making it in the music industry compared to like the journey you had in coming up and making it in the music industry?
Well, I don't really think that that's a fair question. You know what I mean? Because I would complain all the time about there not being any rule book to doing this. You know, there is no blueprint
to this.
There's nobody that can sit here and tell you exactly what's going to work for you. They can definitely tell you what will work. You know what I mean? With added hard work and persistence, you can definitely project what it is that, you know, you're able to do. But there is no blueprint for, you know, a young hip hop artist from St. Louis, Missouri, or whatnot, or how to get heard. You know, when I was a kid, my mother just called me and told me that the projects that we grew up in, which was Eastwood Public Housing, Aurora, Illinois. She just told me that, she said, Carl, they're tearing the projects down. They're tearing Eastwood down. You know, and...
How does that make you feel?
Mixed emotions, but, you know, I was, you know, happy. But it mixed emotions because, you know, I left home at 16. You know what I'm saying? So I was one of those kids who jumped off the porch early, as they say. You know, so I never got if you from the projects or you have cousins or friends in the projects, one thing you have in common is the we moving stories.
Yeah.
The we moving stories. Yep. My dad got this got a job at Caterpillar. We're gonna be moving out pretty soon.
Yeah.
We're gonna be moving out. Look, 7 years later. Yep, my dad just got the job. General Electric. We're gonna be moving out pretty soon. No, you're not.
No, you're not. You're stuck there.
Yeah, so I actually left. You know what I mean? While my mom and my brothers and sisters got a house. You know, I wasn't there for that.
Really?
For that
And you
moving
left
on.
young,
I
too.
wasn't there for that moving on up moment. For me, that was the moving on up moment.
And do you regret that? Like not being there?
Kind of, sort of, but I mean, I don't care. You know what I mean? I was living in. I don't care. I'm living in a triplex downtown Brooklyn. Get out of here. Triplex with roof access. Stop playing. You know, it wasn't-
But seeing things now, right? As far as your career has gone and has gone, right? What would be a piece of advice that you would give yourself now from that time that was at your start of your career? Like, would there be, like your younger self, would there be a piece of advice that you would give yourself?
What I would tell my younger self is you have to be your first fan. Ain't nobody gonna believe you if you don't believe you.
Yourself.
They're not. They really not. They're not. You could be, I mean, you know, you could be great. We're doing a platform that I've been recording. And this platform it's funny that you would even bring up open mic, because I got this platform. We're shooting something called Rhythm and Melody Live.
Okay.
And Rhythm and Melody Live, very simple. Very simple. There is a grand piano, there is a guitarist, and your voice. And the mics are on.
Okay.
So I'm focusing on who I feel is next. The ones that don't. I saw a documentary. I think some of you may have seen it too. It was called 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
And it highlighted the background singers for the Rolling Stones, the background singers for Sting, the background singers for U2, and you know, just
the people that make them sound like
are
stars.
legends.
Yeah.
And mind you, these are singers that are making $25,000 a night. And you've never heard of them. You've never seen what their face looks like up close. Maybe for the exception of Lisa Fisher. You know, she had a really big record with How Can I Ease the Pain, won a Grammy with it and all that. And then left to go be a background singer again because it's stressless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't have the fame and stardom.
But
you can make
I
the same money.
feel like these singers need to be known. They need to be recognized.
And
you know what I
seen,
mean?
yeah.
Absolutely.
And get their own look. And
Now, this is something that's going to be really intimidating. But that was my purpose. My purpose was to intimidate those that can't really do it.
Oh, shit. Believe in yourself.
believe in yourself, man.
Can't really do
Shout out
it.
to my left lane drivers who listen to the Punchline Academy and driving the motherfucking right lane because you don't believe in yourself on a Wednesday. Let's play some classic Carl Thomas. He's back here on the Punchline Academy.